We're back here on Smells Like 90's Rock. Hot Toddy here with you. Well, on this show, we talk about a lot of different things, a lot of fun things going on in the world and stuff like that. And then we also reminisce about the 90s and talk about different things that we did as kids in the 90s or we remember watching or listening to in the 90s and so on and so forth. And that doesn't mean that has to end just because Sheila and DJ Poor are out. No, I've decided tonight we're gonna make an entire topic, this entire show, this entire evening, based around something that I loved from the 90s. And we'll do this on occasion when they're out and it's just you and me. We'll talk about something specific from the 90s and we'll kind of go in depth about it and things like that. And nothing is off bounds. We're talking about TV shows, movies, music, politics even. I mean, we'll get into a lot of different things. But I think that this will be a really cool segment where we just discuss in length things from the 90s, stuff from the 90s. And therefore, this segment is called Stuff from the 90s. So I thought about tonight we'll talk about one of my favorite shows that I watched as a kid in the 90s. It was a freaky, weird, just a weird show that was on Nickelodeon in the mid 90s, but damn it all if it wasn't a lot of fun and very popular during its time. And it was put on by a very popular comedian of that time. The show in question was called Weinerville. Now let's get our giggles out before we continue. Yes, the show was called Weinerville. And the reason why it was called Weinerville was because it was created and hosted by a popular comedian of that time named Mark Weiner. Once again, get your giggles out. Let's get them going, as we've got a lot to get to here, all right? But anyway, no, it was a puppet show. Weinerville was a very funny puppet show, and it was filmed at Nickelodeon Studios in Universal Studios, Florida. So it was just down in Orlando, which I've been to many times. And I never got to visit the Weinerville stage. We were actually down there when Weinerville was being filmed during that time, but we didn't actually get to see the Weinerville set, which was upsetting because, like I said, it's one of my favorite shows, and I kind of wish I'd at least, if not caught an episode, at least seen the set, because that would have been pretty awesome. But anyway, no, Weinerville was on in the mid-90s. It was an audience participation show, and like I said, Mark Weiner was the star of it, and he was, for the most part, like the puppet operator. He operated like all the puppets on the show, which was pretty awesome the way he did it. Now, some of them had to be done like in pre-recorded segments. Like, even if he was talking directly to a puppet that he operated, you could clearly see he was talking to a television. No matter where it was, he was talking to something that wasn't there at that time. But it's interesting because I do kind of a similar thing on my podcast, the Smokin' Hot Toddcast, where we do things, they're characters that are a part of the show, but I'm the one who's actually playing them. So it's interesting to do this kind of stuff. But anyway, Mark Weiner was in charge of everybody. The show was produced between 92 and 94 and ran until 97. Now, the premise behind the show is that it takes place in the city limits of a strange little city called Weinerville. And it was a variety show, and it used kind of the classic elements of, like kids programming. Yeah, like I said, it had the puppets, and it also had a lot of interaction with the studio audience, which was huge back in the day on Nickelodeon. If you had a variety show and you weren't including the audience, you were doing something wrong. That was just a given. Oh, and of course it did the very old-timey thing, showing cartoons in the middle of the show. I don't know why you had to watch a cartoon in the middle of the show. I could do without them. Like, I don't really, I'm here to see Weinerville. I don't really give a crap about what Rocky and Bullwinkle are doing, so please don't show me that. Yes, Bugs Bunny is very funny, but I'll watch him on Looney Tunes. Right now, I'm watching Weinerville. Can we just move along here? Get it together, people. No cartoons in the middle of your show. I'm sorry. Just don't do it. The show premiered on July 11th, 1993, and during the first season, all the episodes ran, and very oddly enough, a 2-hour marathon every Sunday. But luckily, it gained a lot of popularity, so in the middle of that season, Nickelodeon began running the show on weekday afternoons, which is really where it needed to be, because that's like prime time for kids, If you were on Nickelodeon during the afternoon hours, you had it made. That was it. That's all you needed was right there. That was the perfect time. Then the second season started on September 5th, 1994, and the episodes ran daily. So you understand, it had a lot of popularity behind it. Now, like I said, the show was mostly puppet-driven, and it was done. The puppets were ran by Mark Weiner himself. Now, the way he would do it, a lot of his characters, a lot of the puppets were pieced together like this. It would be he would place his own human head onto the body of a puppet. So he would create this little set with the puppet body, like embedded into it, and then he would stick his head from a curtain behind, and then run the puppet from behind the curtain, and so it looked like this was a very strange puppet with a very small, stiff body and a giant human head. It was actually very well done, very clever the way he did it, and very entertaining for children who are 6 or 7 years old. Take it from somebody who was 6 or 7 years old during this time. Take it from me. Very entertaining. And one of those characters he did, probably the most popular character on the show, was a woman named Toddy. She was the mayor of Weinerville, and Mark played her. He put his head onto her puppet body, and it was actually very, very funny. And she was usually the puppet most seen on the show. Because she was just trying to keep her city in control, and she couldn't do it. Her little sidekick was a guy named Zip. He was constantly the concept of him was that he was constantly getting knocked and kicked around, usually by accident, and he was most remembered because of his misfortune and agonizing scream. That's a quote right there. His constant agonizing scream, when something horrible happened to him. Another character, but he was a normal puppet. He was a regular puppet, and I don't really know who played him. He was just a normal, puppet who just showed up all of a sudden. Another Mark Weiner head body thing was a character named Baby Jeffrey. What was significant about him was he was kind of like the announcer for the show. He always introduced Mark Weiner at the beginning of each episode and usually made a horrible mess. And like I said, Mark Weiner also played him. He did put his head on the puppet body type situation. It was actually a very annoying character, and I'm glad we never saw him very much. Commander Ozone, another character where it was his head and the puppet body, was a space traveler, defended against evil and saves the universe with his sidekick Wilson, not the volleyball, but again, he was another normal puppet. Sounds a lot like Scotty. He sounded a lot like Scotty from Star Trek, and he was actually pretty entertaining. And we'll hold it right there. We'll jump right back into the music here for a little bit, and we'll talk more about Weinerville right after this. For now, let's get back into it right here on Smells Like 90's Rock.